Good morning, Darrell. Thank you for talking to me this morning. And just tell me a little bit about your practice as an attorney.
Yes, of course. Good morning, and thanks for having me. Yeah. So my current practice is civil rights litigation, um, mostly employment discrimination stuff,
Okay.
and I've been doing that since in my own practice since 2016. Yeah. Prior to that, I did it. I did defense work, civil litigation defense work for the Attorney General for DC.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was the
I
chief
think
of
I forgot
litigation.
about that. And so we worked together just one time on a case that went all the way to trial. It was one of those cases where I think you said it wasn't going to settle and you were 100% right. But
Yes.
tell me what made that case a candidate for doing an online focus group.
So a couple things. Yeah, number one, we were confident it was not going to settle just based on the way the defendant litigated the case, right? It was like every single motion that that they filed that they lost, they filed, a motion for reconsideration. It was as if they were like sort of trying to get the plaintiff to run out of money and to
Uh-huh.
just drop the case. And mediation was a disaster both times, and so we knew that this thing just was not going to settle. And then the sort of the financial investment that the client had put into the case. The client was out of work for 6 years, partially because of the COVID pandemic, but the just his lost wages were going to be so high. It was like it didn't make sense not to do sort of a jury focus group in this case.
And I felt like I got to know your client a little bit. He seemed totally on board with the whole idea. Tell me how the idea came to be. Like we're going to do a focus group on this because we got a lot of feedback on your client and the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. So, like I said, he was out of work for a long time. We were trying to figure out, should we hire an economist to talk about, all of his lost wages and what he could earn in the future, or should we get like a jury focus group and it sort of try to get them to understand that, hey, these are the hard numbers. He's out of work for 6 years. He made over $200,000 a year. It's like this is the hard number, and then put a number on the number on the pain and suffering. And the client, having not worked, was not he didn't have this well of money that he could just draw from to pay both an economist and a jury focus group. And so we just got the team together and was like, the most important thing is to get a verdict in his favor. I think, and we thought that the damages were going to be easy, and it sort of turned out that way, right? They gave him
Right.
all of his $wages, and then they gave him $500,000 for pain and suffering, and it was wonderful.
All right. I want to unpack your eat. Well, first of all, I want to you hit on something that I always say, like a lot of lawyers want to pay for experts before they even know if their case has legs. So you did the opposite. You wanted to know if your case had legs. Let's talk a little bit about liability because I remember from the focus group, and I just took a look before I talked that people weren't so sure about discrimination, but they didn't like how he was treated. Um, and do you remember any eye openers that were a surprise to you, or did the jury focus group just ratify what you were already thinking?
I so I was surprised. Number one, that so many of the jurors were like for the plaintiff. I did think it was going to be sort of more 50-50 split. But the number of people who were for who thought it was the result of discrimination versus the number of people who just were like, I don't think it's discrimination, but I don't like the way he was treated, was 50-50.
Yeah.
And so that that was sort of that's sort of how I thought the jury would vote, right? Like 50% discrimination, 50% no discrimination. But it looked like most jurors wanted to say, this is not right. Something's amiss here. And so, that was sort of the most surprising, that even though they didn't know it was, they were on discrimination, they still thought, now something's wrong here. So he wasn't treated well. He should be, he should be compensated.
And your opponent videotaped your client's deposition, so we were able to test that out. And the one thing that surprised me is that in a case where your client was accused of lying and that's why he was fired,
Yep.
11 out of 12 jurors found him to be credible.
Yes.
Just about everybody believed him. Was that a surprise to you, or were you expecting that?
I was sort of expecting that only because, the client was, he was like a wonk of, in his bit, right? He was sort of a policy wonk of for marketing, right? And so just sort of the whole it sort of made no sense that he would lie about this thing, right? This thing that other people had gone to in the past, right? And so I was less surprised about by less surprised by that aspect of it.
Okay. And then, I'm always telling people these things can really help you settle a case. It's so great. But you use the results to get you through jury selection, through trial, through verdict. You did a spectacular closing PowerPoint. And you said damages was easy, but we worked together with
Yes,
LTS doing a lot of charts.
yes.
So you helped the jury, you made it visual for them, you put in that work. So I'm going to say I don't think it was easy. You put in the work to make it happen. But do you think those charts and I mean, why did you put the work into it to make it so visual for people?
Yeah. Those the charts were invaluable. Being able to put it up there and show the jury in a very simple format exactly like every year what he was making the prior 5 years, and also what he would have made for the 6 years that he was out of work. And you guys put a ton of work in. The IT folks that you recommended, they put a ton of work in. I forget the name of the company right now.
Yeah, legal technology
Yes,
services. I'll just
yes,
shout out in Atlanta.
they were awesome. They were awesome. And they also did the all the sort of the video deposition stuff that we had to do, where we played video deposition of one of the witnesses who was on the other side of the country. They were able to, live time, start and stop whenever there was like an objection from the other side. We would just say, "Hey, stop the video." They were excellent. Sort of, it was as if they were in the courtroom with us,
They were remote the whole
controlling it
time.
for us. Yeah. But the work that they did and the work that you did on the charts, as I was giving my closing and putting up the damages chart, every single juror was writing notes. Right? They got to look up there and write the notes, and it turned out. I mean, they pretty much gave us exactly what we were asking for in lost wages. So I mean, the charts were invaluable. Your help and legal technology's help, it's just sort of invaluable to damages. But I did think that the damages part would be the easiest part for the jury to understand, as long as we were able to lay it out the right way. And yeah, we put the work in to sort of try to figure out, all right, how do we want to make this thing look? How can we make it look the easiest way possible for the jury? And I think we certainly reached that.
And just my last question to you is about the closing PowerPoint that you put the work into. Because I'm wondering, do you do that in every case, or did you just do it in that case? Because a lot of lawyers don't take the time to pull it all together, make it visual, pull out the demonstratives. We used a lot of what we learned in the focus group, the online focus group, to really hammer home both damages and liability. Is that something that you do routinely?
So the PowerPoint is new for me. Um, so what we used to do in jury trials is just, sort of have charts up there for closing. I would just have a chart on a, cardboard. And that's, it's sort of PowerPoint. But, to be able to do this and do it digitally, and either to click a button or to point to someone and have them flip the slides, was certainly much better than flipping through charts and putting it up on the tripod and having the jury look at it. But yeah, I've always tried to at least use charts, some sort of visual,
Uh-huh.
in my closing arguments. And I think you could see the difference between my closing and the defense closing, where they were just sort of reading off of their piece of paper. There was no visual whatsoever, except a person standing there reading off of a piece of paper for closing. And so that helps. The PowerPoint also helps because it's like points. Like in the beginning of my closing, I was also reading off a piece of paper, looking at the points I wanted to hit. Eventually, I was able to just put that down. I was like, I don't need this. I have the PowerPoint, right? And
Yeah.
it had every single thing, everything I wanted. I mean, we worked on that for a long time. Worked on that into the night,
Yeah.
one night, and so again, your help, everyone's help was just sort of invaluable to our
And
close.
and sometimes people think it's such a headache to work with these outside consultants. It is a lot of work. Did it help your preps, or was it like headachy, or be honest, it might have been a little bit of both.
It was a little headachy, but it again, so we would never have started our trial prep so early had it not been for Jury Solutions, had it not been for working with you to get this case to the jury focus group, right? It certainly helped me kind of focus and figure out like what are the important things, what are the issues, what questions would the jury have, what gaps do we need to fill, and to get that started 4 or 5 months in advance. I certainly think that helped with our success. And so, it's a little headachy only because it's a little bit more work, right? And you get the work done earlier. But I think that's what you need, and that's what we need. And lawyers need to do a little bit more of less procrastination and more, work on the front end
Yeah.
to help that so that there was less work on sort of on the back end, and we just felt so prepared, having been in the weeds of this case so soon and so often. You're right, like getting emails back and forth from you and the tech folks, weekly,
Yeah.
sometimes daily, to keep us engaged in the case, right, and keep us looking for facts that help us, and all that stuff helps and helped get us
Yeah.
the result we got.
Yeah, it was great. And was your opponents, they thought they had it in the bag. I mean, obviously, did they ever offer you anything? Like anything meaningful?
No. So I mean, the most they offered was, I think $140,000, which was not meaningful to our client whatsoever. I mean, he'd spent well more than that in legal fees and expenses and all this other all the other litigation costs. So no, not meaningful. And yeah, I thought they they had it in the bag. I'm not sure why.
Hmm.
Right? Like it was a close case, I think, both ways. Although the jury, I think at the end was either 10-2 or 11-1. The focus group
Right.
either 10-2 or 11-1 for the plaintiff. Like I said, it was like 6-6, whether or not it was the result of discrimination, right? So
Right.
it's a close case. And so I'm not sure why they thought they would have had it, like in the bag, but they clearly did. And, that was a miscalculation on their part.
What was your total verdict in the end?
Yeah. So for the plaintiff, it was $2.2 million, about $2.19 million
Okay.
for him. So 1.5 in attorneys, excuse me, 1.5 in lost wages, and then another almost $600,000 in pain and suffering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a lot.
yeah, that's a lot. And then we filed a fee attorney's fee petition, which is filed on the public docket, for another, I think it was $2.1 million for attorney's fees.
Okay. And you
Yeah.
haven't gotten that outcome yet, but
No, no, still briefing attorney's fees. So yeah, no outcome on that yet, but it'll be close to that. But
okay. Well, that's terrific. Congratulations, Darrell. It was a pleasure for me working with you. And
yes, I look forward to hopefully working with you again in the future. I mean, it was wonderful. You're wonderful to work with. And yeah, I mean, it was just a great experience. And it always helps, like, to have sort of outside consultants, so that we're not kind of living in our own bubble. Just sort of, you bringing us to reality and saying, okay, well, this is a weak point, right? The client might not want to hear it, but it's something the client needs to hear. And especially in a case where you might have a chance for settlement, that might push the case closer to settlement. If the client can have a sort of a dash of reality, he can get out of that bubble of his attorneys talking to him as well. So yeah, it was great. We thank you so much. I don't think we would have
Yeah.
gotten this result without your help.
Well, you're welcome. That
That's
was
my
great. Yeah.
opinion. That's my opinion. Mhm.
And of course, well, listen, take care. And it was great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carolyn. You take care.
All right. Bye
So,
now.
bye bye.